Today, we're going to talk about the top 5 things influencers must do to plan for their futures, and some of these things may surprise you. I'm Justin Moore. Welcome to Creator Wizard, your step-by-step guide to the business of being a creator. In this video, you're going to learn why you need to get started diversifying your income now rather than later, how you can create alternate revenue streams that live apart from your social media persona, and when you need to start getting serious about managing your money properly. Before we get started, don't forget to click the link in the description box to get a downloadable glossary of over 40 influencer marketing buzzwords, acronyms, and lingo that every creator should know. So today we're going to be speaking with Jessy Grossman, who is founder of networking group Women in Influencer Marketing. Welcome, Jessy.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you walk us through how you counsel the talent that you work with or may have worked with in the past to think through how they can diversify their careers, right? I think one of the challenges about this industry is that a lot of brands and other partners kind of look at influencers as a commodity, right? Or maybe just like a line item or a media spend or something like that. So as someone who kind of advocates for creators, what's your best advice on how someone can start becoming diversified?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I've worked with actors many years ago, then worked with influencers for many years and still do. And yeah, it's a great question. I think that to your point, influencers are commoditized still to this day, which kind of blows my mind. But I think that it's just hugely important to appropriately value an influencer. And I think that there's no straightforward way of identifying the value. Unfortunately, there are just a lot of questions that I could sort of guide somebody into to do that. So, it depends on what you're valuing them for. But I think that, some of the questions you'll ask, of course, is, the length of time of this, partnership, and you're going to ask them, of course, how busy they are currently and how much they're looking for work at that time. And sort of what other value points are up for grabs in this exchange, because I am always the first to say that there's a lot of value in things that aren't monetary. And so to just keep that in mind is something that's really hugely important. And that can sort of give you a good range of how to start to value an influencer.
I think one thing I'm curious about is should creators initially focus more time on diversifying the content platforms they're on, right? So let's say it's a large TikToker or something, and they need to build up their YouTube or their Instagram or grow their email list or something like that. Or should they invest more time in monetary diversification, right? So whether it's merch or fan funding on Patreon or something like that. One common thing I hear is that creators are already really feeling kind of burnt out, right? So it's how do they do all this while still maintaining their normal content cadence?
I think that's a really good question. My opinion has always been to really identify what you're best at and really lean into that. There's one argument that could say, well, if someone's going to offer me, a few $100 to throw out a tweet, then I guess I should always have my Twitter presence up so that I can have followers for somebody to be enticed by. But how often is that going to happen? You have to sort of think of yourself as a business first and foremost, and there's only so much energy that you can expand out there. To your point, some people are feeling burnt out and that there are just so many platforms out there, and each one of those, I have such the utmost respect for the amount of time and energy it takes to create content on all of those platforms. TikTok, of course, is particularly exciting. I'm personally obsessed with it. Just as a straight up consumer, I could be on it for hours. In a year like 2020, that's so heavy. It's this incredible platform of levity. And there's so many great things on there that my 5-year-old can be on there with me, because the content on there is pretty clean and pretty family friendly. And it's just feel good content. But that could also be a testament to how great the algorithm is on there, and that the For You page is really for me. So that's a whole other discussion. But to your question, your original question about about, about diversifying content versus diversifying, your for monetary, gain. I think that it's really, I was just talking to somebody about this earlier on our podcast. It's really about identifying what you're best at, identifying what works for you, and just leaning into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that age-old balance question. I think creators are they really struggle with it, especially some of these kind of OG creators who were on YouTube back in the day and have all these different things that they're doing, like you said, a podcast, or trying to maintain their YouTube presence, or it can get very exhausting. So interesting perspective. So like one thing that we've seen grow massively in the last several years is influencers creating product lines, right, that kind of live apart from their name and likeness. And I think that's been really kind of an interesting evolution, right? Because it's like there is this goal to have something that lives apart from them, right? So obviously they're going to use their name and likeness to like promote it, right, in the beginning. But like if an acquirer wanted to come along and purchase it, like it could be something that could still thrive, right? So how do you think through what types of creators or like level of following someone needs to have to be able to launch a product line like that?
So I think it also depends. There's so many questions about that. And I hope to use a platform like this to sort of express how difficult it could be to actually successfully launch a product line. There are a lot of people out there that they have a product line, but it's like a Printful or one of those equivalent where they just slap whatever on somebody else's garment and make a percentage of that sale, but nobody's getting rich doing that. And that's certainly not launching a product line. So I just want to be sort of clear about what that actually looks like. You see a lot of influencers though, who are going into licensing deals with stores like Nordstrom or, big box stores. There's definitely more money in that, of course, but to your point, you have to be at, in the millions of followers, in my opinion, of what I've seen, where before that's going to be successful for you. And even then you need to have a really good person on your side to negotiate that deal, because the Nordstroms of the world know that by you saying that you're associated with them, they're giving you a bit of clout. You have to recognize that and go into that negotiation saying, there's more that I am owed here. And so just to be able to negotiate a good deal, because you can have a deal with anybody and it could be a pretty terrible deal. It really just depends on how you negotiate it and what it settles out to at the end of the day. But to your point, I guess, of even the merchandise itself, there's different ways of going about it. I don't want to get into the specifics too much. I don't know how interesting that is to anybody listening, but there's like self-funding it, of course, and just going and getting the manufacturing done yourself. There are a lot of YouTubers that I personally follow who have said that that's how they've done it, and like kudos to them, because obviously they get a bigger piece of the pie at the end of the day if they had more control over the items, which is huge. Not to ever be underestimated. If you're putting your name on something, like, you better check the quality of that something. The last thing you want is for people who are huge fans of yours to not be so happy with you because they spent their hard-earned money and what they got wasn't what they expected for one reason or another. So it's really important that as you expand your business into whatever way you do, that you really do a deep dive and make sure that it's the same quality as the rest of your content and the rest of your brand.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I think there's been this really interesting shift in consumer perception or follower perception, let's say, over the years. Because I remember when my wife and I tried to launch some things like 7-8 years ago when we were first starting out on YouTube, there was a lot more pushback, I think, than there is now, right? And I think a lot of creators are starting to monetize or have those kind of sales conversations with their followers a lot earlier in terms of their growth trajectory. I think honestly, like platforms like Patreon did a lot to normalize supporting creators that you love, right? And so I think one of the things that I've found pretty fascinating is that there are definitely creators who are monetizing a lot earlier in terms of their career, than the older creators, not older in age, but like, who started making content 10 years ago on YouTube when you couldn't, there was no partner program, this kind of thing. I think it's a mindset, right? It's like feeling comfortable being able to like sell something and stand behind it and know that your audience is, going to support you in that regard. I honestly think like one thing I tell creators is like, look, like just ask them, like, what do they want you to, like, what do they want to buy from you? Right. Like a lot of times I feel like creators do this in like a vacuum and feel like they have to like, sculpt this like genius creation, and then it's like, ta-da. But it's like, really, in reality, you should just like throw it up on Twitter or IG stories. Like, what would you want me to sell? So definitely interesting. So like, if you had to make a prediction of maybe like, let's say like a big change that may happen in the next 1 to 2 years that affects creators' ability to monetize, what would you say, and like kind of how they can prepare now? I mean, look at TikTok, right? I mean, almost disappeared, could still disappear possibly, right? But like, what are your thoughts on where, if creators are looking down in the horizon, like what do they need to be thinking about?
I think to your exact point, it's being able to really cultivate your audience to follow you wherever you go, because your content is going to be great on whatever platform it is, because it's about you, it's about your story, it's about the connection. Those are, the really most highly engaged followers. And so, it's really getting them, to your point, used to these conversations about, hey guys, I found like there's this product that I freaking love and like you got to try it, and it just feeling authentic, it feeling believable, and hopefully it is, by the way, like hopefully it's not an act. I don't want to come off as like, yeah, just fake it the best. Like I hope that the influencers that do stick around for, the long run, the long haul, are those who really are just naturally good salespeople because they believe it, and it's hard to fake. So to your question, yeah, I think that it's really about identifying your audience in ways that a vanity metric won't. So, there, like, for example, if you're working on a brand deal or somebody comes to you and wants to partner, they're going to ask, what's your audience demo? And you'll say, oh, predominantly between this age bracket, predominantly this gender, lives here, lives there. But like, if that's all you know about your audience, there's a big disconnect. I mean, how could you do anything if you're just thinking in these broad strokes? So I think that it's an incredibly wise investment of your time to be able to really dig into like, who are the people, those people that are constantly tagging you, or constantly commenting on your content. Who are those people and what are they doing when they're not on your content? What are they doing in their everyday lives, and who else do they follow? And from there you can glean so much information. So it's hugely important to do that.
I think when I think about the future for creators, I feel like one of the like often overlooked aspects of being a creator is the business side of things, right? And especially managing your money, especially, some of these creators who just catapult to success, or even like, people who are steadily growing. That doesn't have to be like stratospheric growth, but like a lot of people don't think about like, okay, budgeting, setting aside money for taxes, and like, obviously this advice is going to be a little bit different, if it's a creator just starting out versus someone who's, bringing in a lot of income. But is there like kind of a standard checklist or conversation that you have with folks whom you may have guided in the past about like how to be smart with your money so that, you're not sitting here 5-10 years down the line with nothing to show for it?
Yes, 100%. And these are conversations that we have in WIIM all of the time. I was just we have like monthly networking calls, and we were just on one today actually. And someone was like, I'm a small business owner, and when I had multiple employees, I used a payroll service, but like, should I be still using a payroll service because, I'm so bad at money, and like, they know what taxes to deduct from each paycheck, but is that a wise investment? And, what do I do? And I think that most of the people that you and I are going to be talking about these days, whether they're, you know, an influencer manager or an influencer themselves, they're entrepreneurs. And, you know, as a networking organization, a huge amount of the information that we want to distribute is to entrepreneurs and to support them. I'm one, you're one. And so, you know, we want to support each other. And so, you know, to your point about how to appropriately manage your money, I think it's just an honest question you need to ask yourself. It's like, how well versed are you? Do you feel comfortable doing something like this for yourself with maybe some, you know, a tool here or there? Or is this something that would be a wise investment, invest back into your business and sort of outsource those things to just be able to like to approach it in the right way?
Absolutely. Because I kind of think of creators to some degree. You have like those one-hit wonder bands, right? Where they're buying the Ferraris, they're buying these like all this crazy stuff, they're spending all of the money, and then 2 years later it fizzles out. And I feel like, you know, smart creators, so even if you have like a tiger by the tail and let's say your social media relevance is only 3 to 4 years or something like, so first of all, let's face it, it's hard to maintain relevance as a creator for 10 years, right? Or like 15 years, especially with the fickleness of the algorithm, right? Like on all these different platforms, right? So like you can make significant money and have a significant impact in a couple years and set yourself up for, you know, maybe you're not going to retire for, you know, your whole life right then, but can make a serious impact on your future and on your life in the direction of your career after, you know, your influencer career is over. But that's super interesting, Jessy, and thanks so much for joining us. And so how can people contact you or follow you or find out more about WIIM?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, iamwiim.com. That's I.com. We have a great podcast as well. You know, the goal is really to just support women, all who touch influencer marketing in a variety of different ways. So we've built this really wonderful community of females and women who, you know, are there and supporting each other. And we want more women to support. So come and join us. We look forward to meeting you.
Fantastic. Thanks again. So I hope you enjoyed the interview. I would love for you to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be alerted every time I upload a new video. And please leave a comment down below if you have any questions or future video ideas, and you are one step closer to becoming a creator wizard. Don't forget, if you want insider tips on how to grow your business as a creator and diversify your income, click the link in the description to join our free newsletter. You'll get exclusive videos, worksheets, and insights on the influencer marketing landscape, access to special product discounts, first look at upcoming courses, and more.